I'm David Hart. I'm one of the founding members of Team Fastrax professional skydiving team. I'm also founder with my brother John with the Blue Skies for Good Guys and Gals Warrior Foundation. And I'm deeply involved in the organization of our Team Fastrax Warrior Weekend Remember that we host every summer.
I'm John Hart. I'm a founding member of Team Fastrax professional skydiving team and also one of the founding members of the Team Fastrax Warrior Weekend Remember. My involvement is really just to try and make sure that the weekend and the event itself that we have out at the Middletown Regional Airport is successful. The reason we started the Team Fastrax Warrior Weekend to Remember was to make a difference in the lives of others. When we say others, we're talking about combat injured veterans and Gold Star families. The weekend itself was originally supposed to be something very small, very intimate, meant for warriors, and it morphed the first year to involve the Gold Star families. And since then, this is now our 5th year, we've actually changed a lot of lives for the good.
What Team Fastrax Warrior Weekend to Remember means to me, it means there's an opportunity to show gratitude for Gold Stars and Purple Hearts who have sacrificed their sons and daughters and husbands, and of our service members who've been seriously injured in combat. And this is an opportunity to show gratitude and offer healing and enriching weekend where they can have fun, bond, and connect.
Over the years, I've looked at the impact that the Team Fastrax Warrior Weekend to Remember has had on our Gold Star families and warriors, and it's absolutely incredible. It's not just an emotional change, it's a spiritual change within these individuals.
The most rewarding part of the entire Weekend Remember is the people that you meet, the Gold Stars, the Purple Hearts, and even the volunteers and the sponsors. There's so much unconditional love that surrounds these people, and the closer you get to them, the more that you see not only how vulnerable they are and how hurt they are, but also how receptive they are to healing and love.
There's a brief moment where they're with others that understand what they experience, and by having this weekend, you're able to make a difference in their lives. The people that participate in this weekend, not just the warriors and the Gold Star families, but the volunteers and the sponsors and everyone else that comes out, you change their life. You give them peace, some form of peace for just a couple of days, and that peace will help them heal in different ways. So the weekend itself, it's pretty amazing.
The Przinskis, they live in Fairfield. Their son Taylor Przinski was killed in action. They have been coming every year for the last 4 years, and not only do they participate, but they give of themselves and help with the healing of the new people that come in. Sam Deeds is Marine Purple Heart, but Sam just is such a giving person, and he comes in and gives himself, and he has a direct connection to Taylor Przinski.
My goal with this film that you're about to watch is that you find some way within yourself to say, I can make a difference too. So when you watch these testimonies of these 3 families, my goal and my hope is that it will change your life, that it'll inspire you. It'll inspire you to go out and get others to help our organization continue to make these changes and differences in their lives.
We're John and Carol Przinski. We're the Gold Star family of Lance Corporal Taylor Przinski, who was killed in Iraq May 9th of 2005. We're originally from the greater Cincinnati area. I served in the United States Air Force from 1980 to 1989. And Taylor was born in the Air Force Hospital, the medical center there at Hill Air Force Base, November 12th of 1984. Well, when Taylor was in high school, we basically had a conversation with him about, what are you going to do after high school? And he decided that he definitely wanted to join the military and do his part. Right about graduation time, he came to us and he said, I definitely want to be a Marine. We blessed his decision, and he was assigned to the 3rd Battalion, 8th Marine Regiment. And the 3rd Battalion, 8th Marine Regiment had already deployed to Haiti to be a peacekeeping force.
Then I get selected for recruiting duty. I was a recruiter in the greater Cincinnati area. Finished my 3 years there, and back to the Fleet Marine Force I went. I was back probably 3 or 4 days, and they're like, hey, Sergeant Deeds, you're going to go over to the School of Infantry and pick up a group of Marines. So, and one of those Marines happened to be Taylor Przinski.
When he got back from Haiti in '04, they started to work up to prepare to go to Iraq in '05. In the time that he was deployed to Iraq, we talked to him as often as we could when he called. And then in May of '05, they were in arrears of an operation called Operation Matador, as I understand it. And they had taken a farmhouse as an operational post, and they were changing positions, standing watch, and just as he and another Marine by the name of Marcus Made were crossing, a mortar had been fired and it hit, and 4 Marines went down and 4 Iraqi soldiers went down, and unfortunately Taylor was killed. Very early on May 10th, we got a knock on our door from 2 Marines in their Class A uniforms, and as soon as I opened the door, they didn't need to say a word, and we got the worst news of our life. Then fast forward a couple years, we had a friend of ours who was a food broker, and he had a company that they did a luncheon for their employees once a year. So Sam was there representing a veteran group. We were there representing a veteran group. So we got to talking and realized that we had met a year or so before that at a concert called the Freedom Concert, but we didn't have much time to talk there. And then realized that Sam Deeds was with the 3rd Battalion, 8th Marine Regiment, also worked in the Fairfield recruiting station when Taylor got recruited. Then we discovered that he was the NCOIC that took the group from School of Infantry.
Yeah, March 20th, we went up to set up a vehicle checkpoint just to the west of Abu Ghraib prison. As we're approaching the checkpoint, there was 2 rock piles, one on each side of the road that weren't there earlier that day. So I stopped everybody, went up and searched the rock piles with a flashlight. Didn't see anything, still didn't feel comfortable, so we went down around it, set up on the other side, and I forgot my own cue. As we were getting set up, I hear a noise behind me, and it's 2 of my Marines entering the danger area, so I went back to tell them that there was a possible IED in the road to turn around and run, get out of there. Once they cleared the danger area, I turned, and the device was detonated. And it ended up being a 155 shell on each side of the road, which is basically 6 to 8 inches at the base and about 2 feet long, and it was just packed full of whatever. When I came to, I was 25 feet from where I was standing initially. I remember my corpsman grabbing me, pulling me out of the road, sticking me with morphine, and then the next thing I remember, I'm waking up in the hospital at Abu Ghraib. The recovery process was pretty long. A year and a half later, I was told that I couldn't be in the Marine Infantry anymore. That's all I'd known at that point for 9 years. That's all I wanted to do. But they told me I could still be a Marine. So I looked at my options, and the one I decided on was to be a V-22 mechanic. So I went and worked over there for my last 5 years in the Marine Corps before I was medically retired. After 30 plus surgeries, the Navy and the Marine Corps found it fit that I was healthy enough to be discharged, and they medically retired me. I get home in 2011, and then I was invited to speak on for a veteran nonprofit at a luncheon in Cincinnati, and this lady said, "We have another special guest here today." And I saw a gentleman that looked semi-familiar to me, and he came up to introduce himself. He goes, "Oh, my name is John." I said, "Mr. Przezinski," I said, "I know who you are." I said, "My name is Samuel Deeds. I served with 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines. I was with Kilo Company." I said, "I knew your son."
About a year or so later, I get a call from David Hart, and he says, "John, can you call some Purple Hearts and some Gold Star families and ask them to come on a Wednesday morning at 0600 and skydive and ride in a balloon?" And I said, "Yes, sir, of course I will."
I get a phone call from John, and he says, "Sam, the skydive team wants to do a PR thing for the Ohio Challenge. They want a Purple Heart recipient to skydive. Do you want to do it?" I'm like, "Skydive? Yeah, not a problem." So I came up, did a skydive with him, and since that day we've remained friends and become family.
When we introduced Sam to the Hearts, they embraced him and made him part of their family. And Sam ended up taking a job with them, and now he's part of their ground safety crew and travels the world with Team Fastrax.
The relationship with the Przezinskis, like I said, has become more of a family. especially, Carol didn't understand that I knew Taylor the way I knew him. She thought I just served, alongside him in 3-8, and then she found out, and I think it meant a lot more to her of who I was. So we do, John, every now and again, we're both big Ultimate Fighter fans, so he'll have UFC fight night at his house. Bring a dish, come on out, bring whoever you want. So probably 3 or 4 times a year, I'm at his house doing fight night. We do a lot with the Blue Skies for the Good Guys Warrior Foundation, for the Team Fastrax Warrior Weekend to Remember. The healing process, I think for the both of us, understanding, like I said, we were brothers, and we may not be blood, but we were brothers. We both signed our name on the line to defend the freedoms, and we understood the risks. And I've gained a new family through them.
Taken every opportunity to tell Taylor's story, because we're not making new memories with him. We don't want his memories that we have with him to fade. So if we don't tell his story, how are we going to remember? And to be a part of something like this, they're making sure that he's not forgotten. But it's not just Taylor, and it's important to us that it's not just Taylor, that it's the other Gold Star families. And it's not just important to us that we get to hang out with Sam Deeds. It's the other Warriors too, and Sam recognizes that.
The Zanowicks are the most humble, kind-hearted people you'd ever want to meet in your life. They're very quick to talk about their son. It's obvious they just have this deep love and affection for him, and they grieve very deeply for his loss every day. But in spite of that, they still give of themselves.
When I think about the Zanowicks and Daniel, it's another one of those special, unique bonds. Daniel knew their son, knew him very well, and he now lives in our area. But Daniel was struggling. Daniel attended this weekend, and it changed his life. But it changes the lives of the Zanowicks as well.
Good afternoon. My name is Nanette Zanowick, the mother of Corporal Paul W. Zanowick II. We called him Rocky. He was killed in action in Afghanistan June 3rd, 2011. And this is my husband.
And I'm Paul Zanowick. Our son was an awesome, caring young kid as a kid, and he liked helping other people. He would make somebody know and believe that they could be more than what they are. And so he ended up considering and thinking about and talking about military. And he went through school, and he decided he was going to join a service, and he chose the Marine Corps. November, December-ish of 2007, he says, I'm going in and I have the date. And so on January 21st, 2008, he left home to go join the Marines and went to Parris Island for boot camp. So he came home, he got to come home for a little bit, and we visited, and then he had to go right into Marine Corps infantry school, and did, and left again. And he got hurt early on in training, broke his ankle. He ended up meeting a few people in there that become part of our lives in ways, but one of them was a young lady who was a Marine who also was injured, and so that relationship blossomed. And a few months later, we got a phone call that they were getting from her that they were getting married, and so we dropped everything and left and went to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
For an outdoor wedding. The next day.
They got married.
And then he got stationed in California.
Yeah. They went out to 29 Palms, California, and Paul continued training, and everything was going well, and ended up the year where he got a phone call that the baby was born on August the 19th of 2009. He actually left to go to Afghanistan on October 4th of 2009, which was their first year anniversary, and he left to go to Afghanistan. It was a difficult deployment, but they suffered minimal casualties, and came home came home okay. And then and we had an opportunity to go out in March of 2011 to see him before they deployed. And it was a somewhat sobering kind of a visit because we knew that it was not going to be a good deployment, and then there was a lot of tension. They weren't there but about 6 weeks when we had Marines come visit us. They don't have to tell you.
Yeah. As soon as you see
them, you know. So we suffered a parent's worst nightmare, losing a child, and complicated because he gave his life.
Then we went out for their welcome home in October of 2011. The Marine Corps flew Rocky's, his unit got back, and they flew Paul and I out to 29 Palms so we could be there when they got back. And we were there for the formal ceremony, and we stayed the next day for the Purple Heart ceremony. Paul and I are with the other Gold Star families up under this shelter where we had been sitting for the service, and all these Marines exit stage left. I mean, they're all running that way. They're on leave. They're getting the heck out of there. And we're standing there watching this flood of bodies go that way, and all of a sudden here's one young man running back. And he ran right up to me, and he talked to me. I could see on his shirt the name Erlinson, so I knew exactly who he was. And he gave me his Purple Heart and then took off running. The morning of the day that Rocky was killed, there was a firefight.
We took over an empty compound and ran patrols out of there, and we got ambushed and got in a firefight. Enemy stopped firing, so we moved away, started moving back to our outpost that we were working from, and then we got told that we're going to go back out to the same place, which is something you don't really ever do. We went back out and we got ambushed again, took fire from multiple different directions. If I remember right, I was in a kneeling looking one direction. I turned, and as soon as I started to get up, I felt something hit me in the back of my shoulder, and pretty much felt like someone hit me in the back of my shoulder with a baseball bat. I knew immediately what it was. I dropped to a knee and I was yelling, "I'm hit," and the guy behind me grabbed me by the back of my flak jacket and pulled me to some safety, and they started working on me. Started bandaging me up and everything like that, and then they had some guys come over with a stretcher, and they had all my gear stripped off, so I was pretty much just in my pants and my boots. So they picked me up, they're running me out. I'm thinking then, I'm like, well, I didn't die before, but this is probably gonna be when it's happening. A few hundred meters, and we get back to our compound, and then somebody from our CAT team, they came to pick me up, and one of the Marines in there was Corporal Zanowick.
And then later on in the day, after the firefight had stopped, Rocky and his unit were chosen to go back out there to do this battle damage assessment. And so they had to go in being very careful and making sure that they didn't hit any IEDs or anything, new or old. And they got back to where they needed to be set up for this battle damage assessment, and one of the vehicles got stuck.
Which was common, happened all the time.
It was a bad situation. If you're going back into an area where there was a firefight earlier, the natives are still restless. Rocky didn't want any of his guys to get out of that truck. So Rocky got out of the truck, and he was going to hook it up to be pulled out, and he was looking up at his one buddy Fred, smiling at him, when he took a sniper shot to the head. The only good part was he didn't suffer. Another firefight ensued. Nobody else was hurt except Rocky.
So then when I got back, I found out, and it's hard to see somebody you hadn't really known that much you'd known a little bit, but just made a really big impact on you in a time that was very scary and unpredictable, and just one little thing he did just stuck in my heart and in my mind, and so it tore me apart pretty good.
I got I am from a Marine. He says, my name is Daniel Erlinson, and I just wanted to say I was thinking about your son today and offer my condolences. And I reached back out to him, and I started a conversation, and I says, so, that's awesome. Thank you for reaching out to me. I appreciate it. You're always invited to our house, to our home if you're ever in the Dayton area. And he says, I'm in Huber Heights. And I'm like, Huber Heights, Ohio? That's right up the road. And he came with his wife, and we connected, and it was
good.
Yeah, it was healing. It was right. It was just right. And so that began our relationship with Daniel Erlinson.
Yeah.
And it became a family to me. I hadn't seen him since the Purple Heart ceremony, and I just came there, and it just felt like family again. I immediately got there, and we hugged, we cried. To me, it was just amazing. Out of all the places we could have moved in the United States, and I had no idea they lived here, and I moved 30 minutes away from them, so it's pretty incredible.
Last year, Wounded Warrior Weekend to Remember, we had the honor and the opportunity to sponsor Daniel Erlinson, who our son extracted from a firefight in 2011 on the day he was killed. And we went on this adventure. We went on this weekend to remember. And so Daniel shows up, and he's got a smile on his face, but he's a little bit timid. And there's all these warriors around, and it could be intimidating, I suppose, and when you have so many people coming together and everything. And Daniel was a little bit quiet about it and this and that. But the weekend started, and the activities started to beginning, and as the weekend went on,
His grin grew.
There was a smile on his face. He started connecting with the other warriors.
But I think Daniel's biggest smile came that first Warrior Weekend after he skydived.
He was smiling ear to ear, and he didn't stop smiling, I don't think, the whole rest of that day.
No, I was definitely intimidated and timid at first. I'm not a big fan of going a bunch in front of people I don't know. I really wasn't earlier, especially after I got out. Skydiving had been something I'd wanted to do since I was as young as I could remember. So when the Xanax told me that was one of the things I was going to be able to do, I was like a kid. I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And so yeah, that first morning, the first time last year when I did it, I mean, that was literally the first time I had smiled like I did in years.
We lost our son, but we gained.
And we've embraced he and his wife, and they are always welcome and at our house anytime. And
think of him as a son.
Yeah.
I don't know, the way they accepted me and made me feel like family was something I hadn't felt in years as well.
When you think about Kevin and Joel, you think about two warriors that have been injured, two warriors who have a connection for life, and one being Air Force, one being Army.
Their paths crossed, and they've been forever intertwined. Joel Tavera is horribly injured and burned, but has the most positive attitude.
Many people would sit there and say, this individual has suffered so much, but he's also healed so many others. And Kevin is just an incredibly strong man of character, and by attending this weekend, it's made a big difference in his life as well.
Hello, my name is Staff Sergeant Joel Tavera, U.S. Army retired. I was blown up in Nazaré, Iraq, March 12th of 2008. Almost a year and like a few weeks after graduating high school, with a year college under my belt, I joined the U.S. Army. I got to the Middle East, October of 2007. I moved around from base to base to base on volunteer status. We have this mission, so we need a soldier to do this. Like, I'm game. Pack your stuff up. You'll be on the convoy going out, or you'll be flying out. It's like, perfect, no problems. Last duty station in the Middle East was Camp Delta off the Tigris River, in the Tigris and Euphrates. Then I left from there to Talil. Camp Talil was where Captain, who is now Lieutenant Colonel Lombardo, was the Provost Marshal. I would have met him if I got caught being stupid.
March 12th, 2008, that's the day that really changed my life and a lot of other lives that day.
My roommate actually was given a duty and he didn't want to do it, so he shamed. I volunteered for the duty. Normally we don't get hit on Tuesday mornings, but we had 13 rockets coming that day. I heard the first one hit, but I didn't realize it was a rocket.
It was early, around 5:30 in the morning. I got up when I heard the first rocket impact. I had my radio with me, and I heard a report that a rocket hit around the outside the main gate area. So I jumped in my vehicle, grabbed all my protective gear.
Second rocket hit the truck.
And probably a couple hundred yards in front of me was another vehicle. Rocket came from the sky and smashed that vehicle, blew it up.
I thankfully managed to get that door pried a little bit, so when it hit, I was flung, but I'm not sure how. I may have been part way in the vehicle, or was I can't, it was just all a blur.
By the time I got up to the vehicle, there was one individual who got out of the vehicle and ran off. When I approached the vehicle, it was in intense flames. I noticed somebody off to the side. He was completely in flames. I
was bloody. One leg was missing, one eye was fried like an egg, the other one's blown out completely, and I was just burnt.
I was able to grab him and move him about 30 feet away. He had severe burns to his face, his body.
I remember being on the ground, hearing rounds pop off, and then hearing Kevin's voice. He's talking to me, and then I remember something covering me.
One of the Army guys took off his flak jacket. I took my flak jacket off, and we covered the Army soldier on the ground. I didn't know what his name was, never met him before.
I had no idea how severely I was injured. I just knew that I felt pain, and then I didn't. I felt pain, then I didn't.
I was working on Joel, trying to get an IV put into his arm. He was chatting, he was talking, he was asking questions, and I was just trying to talk to him to keep him talking. That's what we're taught. One of the weird things that, to this day, I didn't remember it until after I was in PTSD counseling and everything, but when we took off his jacket to put his IV in, I noticed that his entire arm was just burned, and he had a patch of skin on his right arm, and he had a tattoo, and the tattoo was of a cross, and it had underneath it had Hebrews, and then one thing that's just weird to me was he had 412. I just remember it struck immediately in my head, 412. 412 is my birthday, and I told myself that this airman or this soldier, I just need to do everything possible to try to keep him alive. So they loaded up Joel in the ambulance, and that was the last I saw him at that time.
And then I went into a coma. I was in a coma for 81 days. And I woke up in San Antonio, Texas at Brooke Army Medical Center.
Through the deployment, would just hear things back and forth on how he was doing, and he was still alive. That's all I knew. Time for the deployment to end. Things just weren't the same. I knew things weren't the same with me. I went through some extensive PTSD counseling. And one of the things the doc asked me was, how's also I remembered at the time was Tavera. How's Tavera doing? And I said, I haven't heard anything. And I went home that night and I did some research, and I found out that somebody's Facebook post mentioned that he was down in Texas, and I called down there one day, just out of the blue, and from my office, and I talked to somebody at a desk, and I said, I'm trying to find Specialist Tavera. He's probably in the burn unit. So they transferred me to the burn unit.
The liaison had said something to my father. Hey, we have a person he was the person on the base that administered medical aid to your son. He's been calling, bugging, trying to find out how your son's been doing. Like Sergeant Tavera, like, oh, okay. So my dad got the hold of the phone, started talking to Kevin.
We talked, and he thanked me, and I didn't want him to thank me. And he told me about a ceremony that they were going to be having for Joel in the next couple months, and he said, Joel never got his Purple Heart ceremony. And I was able to go to Joel's Purple Heart ceremony, where I was told to go into another room, and that's when Jose, Maritza, Mama Tavera, brought Joel in, and he was in a wheelchair. When I saw him, it just brought back so many of the things that he was talking about. His voice was so strong that day on March 12th. It was strong. And when I heard him talk for the first time, it was low, slow, and deliberate. And it was amazing just to hear his voice, to touch him, to hear him interact with his mom and dad. His mom, Mama T, was she just gave me a big hug and a kiss and said, "You are my son now too." And literally for the next 6 months, we just had a blast. He went from being in a hospital bed to barely able to move around to us being able to go out, and we actually got him salsa dancing. I want to say, he always tells me how much I helped him. In those 6 months of me being with him and his mom and dad, that helped me out so amazing. My family was able to come down to Tampa. They met his family. My 3 kids adore Joel. And during one of the months there, Joel was talking about how he got invited to a Wounded Warrior event. So I went up to that weekend with them, and I met these 2 brothers, John and David Hart.
Warrior Weekend is amazing. Having jumped with Team Fastrax out in Texas with Halo for Heroes, I was invited to Warrior Weekend.
Joel said, "I want to go skydiving." And these guys looked at Joel and they're like, his dad's like, he wants to go. So Joel, David Hart strapped Joel up, and those 2 went skydiving. I've seen Joel at his absolute worst. I haven't seen Joel at his best yet.
My healing's not completed, but I'm still having a blast in the process. So it seems like it's continual.
This March will be 10 years. What's going to happen in another 10 years with him? Where he went from bedridden in a coma to skydiving, jumping out of a plane at 13,500 feet.
So the Team Fastrax Warrior Weekend to Remember is unique. It's a grassroots campaign. It's something that we fund, with a lot of our own money and with sponsorship money. Our goal of this particular weekend is to change lives.
What I hope people take away from this video is, and these testimonials that we have produced, I really hope that these people are able to watch us and understand all of that better. Understand these people that are being impacted and their stories. Listening to these people talk and provide their testimonial gives any person the opportunity to clearly see the impact of war on these Americans.
Well, this weekend allows us to bring people together who have the same emotional struggles. And by participating, by you supporting Blue Skies for the Good Guys and Gals, your donations make a huge difference. We need it. We need to change lives. We can't forget about the men and women who have sacrificed so much. We can't forget about the Gold Star families whose children are buried so that you and I can do the great things that we want to do, to enjoy the freedoms that we have.
So I hope that people watch these testimonials and they have some powerful takeaways from that.
The grassroots, all-volunteer mission of our annual Warrior Weekend to Remember is to honor and thank our nation's veterans. Veterans who gave more than most, Purple Heart recipients, and Gold Star families of fallen heroes, by providing them with a long weekend of enriching, life-changing experiences. Experiences that facilitate new friendships, lifelong bonding, emotional healing, and a hell of a lot of fun.
Specialist James Davis.
My name's Ken Doyle.
Sergeant Matthew Pennington.
Colonel John Bates.
Zach Rutman.
Name's Pat.
Daniel Erlinson. Nick Seward.
Don Krasinski. I'm Carla Geese. Carol Krasinski.
Joe Marm.
Halsey Henson. Shelley Smith.
Don Doc Ballard. Medal of Honor recipient from Vietnam.
I'm here supporting the Warrior Weekend.
Warrior Weekend.
For the Warrior Weekend.
Warrior Weekend to Remember.
Warrior Weekend to Remember, and help support our veterans who have served for us overseas in combat.
We got a bunch of hot rods, vintage kind of 1960 Corvettes, Chevelles, Novas, big V8s, and they're going to haul you down to full throttle. We're going to get in go-karts that go 45 miles an hour.
My name's Senior Master Sergeant Wallace. I'm here at Team Fastrax, and I just wanted to say that this community has been very supportive. This is a one-of-a-kind event. There's been dark times in many people's lives, and it's organizations like this and the caring people and communities like this that really give you something to strive for and build you up from the inside out.
My name's Beth Hayes. This is my husband, David. We are members of Muddy Buddies Jeep Wrangler Club. For the Warrior Weekend to Remember, we had 45 Jeeps. We have transported these wounded warriors and Gold Star families to various locations. We came with our flags flying and our music playing. It was just an amazing, humbling experience to talk to these families and talk to the warriors and hear their stories. They develop lifelong friendships at this event.
Say that over the last couple days that we personally got to meet a lot of y'all and made some good friends out of this thing. I can't tell you what an amazing gift it is to get to meet all these heroes and their families, and just all of you for being here this evening.
Put your hands together from the other band from Texas, Lone Star!
They all came out here, they went skydiving, they got to ride in all these cool airplanes, the Huey helicopters, the biplane, the B-25 bomber, you know, and it's the greatest thing in the world to give it back.
here just to support those heroes and the families. As Opie said, about making friends and connections. I got a great one right here. It's going to be a lifelong friend, just as everyone else has. And it's been a monumental event, something I'll never forget, but I will always be back for.
So, tell me, how was it?
Fucking awesome.